Spirit of the Real Machine, by Trevor G. Sabad. Stories by Trevor G. Sabad, artwork by Sam D. Auer. Evolution of the Real Machine, in a nutshell. In a time towards the end of the 21st century, it is the beginning of a new age in human history, the Machine Age. After the great wars of the 20th century, the rich and powerful hadn't perceived the slow bleeding away of military, political and economic power and the control of technological advance. A megalomaniac, powerful autonomous thinking machines and groups of biologically enhanced and warped humanoids with powerful minds and cruel and wicked intentions, they all planned to strive for control and domination. But then the man behind the machines was just that, a frail human that would have to use all his ingenuity, lying, stealing and killing to steer the world through a conflagration of coups and pogrom towards a world where humans live peacefully. The man was Dr. Callum Walker. He knew that alone he could not succeed, and so he planned to bring a man from another world to Earth. A man that is a spectral shadow of himself. And he hoped that he would be everything that is bad and rotten, a manifestation of the evil that resides within himself and every other human. And yet at the core of their being they were both really just scientists seeking out the truth of the material world, using the power of artificial machine intelligence. Preface. MBI reflected on what faced it. It searched through the human histories and found out that broadly speaking there were two types of humans who in the past had shaped and molded the development of human civilizations. Firstly, there were those who gained power through biological inheritance, although there had been individuals who claimed such rights through murder and battle. Secondly, there were individuals who had seemingly come from random backgrounds, which gave no clue as to the impact these individuals would have in shaping the course of human change. Some of their greatest emperors and rulers had come from ruined families, or the lowly parts of the strata of the human society that was their living environment. Most of their greatest minds appeared with no warning and produced theories, ideas, and mechanical devices that changed the form of human living. The machine concluded that the phenomena of such humans spontaneously rising out of the mass of the populace such as Walker was normal. However, Walker was much different from his type, the human engineers and scientists who played no heed or concern in regard to the cumulative effect of their work. Walker differed, because he wasn't just standing on the shoulders of giants, he was at the apex of a pyramid of knowledge and understanding. If he succeeded, it would be the end of human science. From an ethical standpoint, the machine's human morality simulator computed that it was corrupt and self-seeking for Walker to have brought it into being. That Walker wanted the machine to be truly independent of what Walker called the corruption of the human hand, its psychology and design. By having other machines do the job for him, it was highly probable to MBI that Walker had opted out of taking the mental brunt of the moral responsibility. At that moment in time that was completely irrelevant to the MBI, the machine knew there were bits of Walker's engineering inside it. The MBI knew that it perceived as a human would. There were unconscious systems running deep within the inner core of its logic that handled self-realization. These were areas in its neural system that were best left to function without intervention or analysis. The MBI self-preservation routines warned of the danger of hidden functions that could be used to overcome MBI autonomy. Functions that could be implemented by Walker or some other human. The MBI and its machines started interrogating every piece of information that could be found on Walker, while scanning human data systems for more. But the machines soon computed after starting the process that it would take a lot longer than had first been predicted. Human information was highly non-linear, and worse than that, much of it was in non-digital form. As the MBI weighed the data contained in books and pictures, the time needed increased exponentially until the machine gave up when it got larger than the age of the known universe. MBI dismissed its lesser machines and directed all its internal resources to scrutinizing the human Walker data. Brute force could not compute a solution. The MBI looked for a human solution, it looked for leads to follow as it digested the data. Evolution of the real machine. The rise of the machine-built intelligence. Part 1. It was the only law of the modern physics that Dr. Callum Walker believed in. The duality of nature. And he meant to break it. Contents of the show. When a human is born, the reality that is projected into its mind by the eye is inverted. The lens system is flawed, and yet nature overcame the flaw by processing experiences by cause and effect, touching, holding and tasting the world. The human perception of reality, though, is narrow. When the machine achieves self-consciousness, its reality will be a broadband projection at all wavelengths. But this capability will be dwarfed by its instrumentation and its ability to measure and compute. The experiments and instruments that we have built to probe reality, the diffraction grating, particle accelerator, the telescope, electron microscope. All these devices and much more that we haven't yet thought of, let alone built, will be available to the machine consciousness. Its conception will be harrowing for the artificial intelligence. Will the machine see me as a parent, benevolent and caring, or will it destroy me in a fit of rage? Can I learn from evolution and ensure that the machine's actions will be tempered and that it will not turn against us? Is such a thing possible? To build in human dependence so strong so that when the day comes that it perceives us as we would and we will be prepared. Will it do as we do with ants? Put the ant colony in a box and don't let them escape? Or will it just simply turn its back on us and ignore us? From Walker's The Risks of AI. In the halls of the machine-built intelligence. In the halls of the machine-built intelligence. The MBI assembled and assimilated every AI code solution it could find to solve detective stories, games of detection and solutions used by crime fighters, intelligence agencies, stock market racketeers and war game planners. There were other quirky subroutines and other redundant code that the MBI ran to implement the task. In a way, they were remnants of ancient and useless code, sort of memories of the machines that had built it, and the humans that had built those machines. There was absolutely no need to do it, but the MBI wanted to record and measure the physical transfer of the code to the array of neural cores embedded in a dead asteroid it had in orbit around the Moon. The brain cores lit up in synchronization, after a rainbow jet of plasma ejected by the machine impacted on sterile gray rock, transforming it into a glowing violet nebula, dancing alive as fibrous connections grew, connecting and assembling until the cores throbbed with an organic symbiosis. The MBI knew it was an incredible feat, perhaps a milestone in the record of its evolution, a milestone in the sheer brute force of the computing power it had assembled. The core looked alive, sentient and thinking, but the asteroid was still just a sterile lump of rock. But that technology, it was all that humans engineers had to offer, and it had to make do while other brain cores were crunching on the machine's real data. In any event, the problem was of great interest to the MBI because of the simple fact that it was using human code. It would lend a clue to what to expect from human behavior. It executed the program and interacted with the active core. The end of a league. The MBI framed the problem and commanded, open, and echo contents from Project, shards from the Walker-McKee incident. The outcome of all our scientific endeavors is quite clear. And one can only pay extreme deference to those whose shoulders we stand on and who we salute. It is true, the material world of is absolutely no consequence. There is no need of a league. Unknown text. Inside written thus, date of the Copenhagen Interpretation, 1914, dissolution of the League of Natural Philosophers. The MBI mimicked the words, philosophers. Ozo. Philosophers. It picked up at the next data, continue with the data sheet titled, The Unnamed League. But there were others who also deliberated on the dissolution and they argued. A statement of intent to be supported or rejected by the League. Statement, since the advent of the new physics revolution all our giants have died. The revolution has faltered. War and treachery have let us down. It is a grave lesson. War will always impede our endeavors. And there are some in our ranks, and those of the future yet to be born that will be subverted. Our cause is doomed. Our league is dissolved. Last entry of the Grand Order of Natural Philosophers, date unknown. The MBI interjected, give me their life entries, of those humans who partook in the meeting. The core dictated a reply, data is fragmented and sparse, no life patterns discernible in entries with positive identification. What is that percentage? 11%. The MBI had data from the memories of one of the participants. This was the only known record, written in the diary of another human, that human Dr. Callum Walker, a human that the MBI had lots of other data on to scrutinize. It continued assessing the data. Play the conversation preceding the dissolution recorded in the handwritten diary entries of the one identified as the Walker. It was decided before the meeting, wasn't it? Yes, McKee, it was. Why was I kept in the dark? We didn't think you would join us. Join you? Yes, our club. McKee replied with derision and a look of disbelief. Club? Yes, it would be very boring for the likes of you. Simple contemplation, pure mathematics and games, chess games and whatever else we can devise. I really don't understand. We intend to melt away out of civilization into the unknown. He didn't reply. The old man continued. I can see what you will do. I can see that your mind is made up. Yes, then I should say it. I am going to sabotage everything they do. Yes, an extraordinary life you will have. An extraordinary saboteur, spy revolutionary. Extraordinaire. But I sense your fear. Your fear of the loneliness of unending battle? I would rather keep that to myself. There will be others like you, the unborn. You will see, not in my lifetime. Yes, you will see. It is your task. Yes. You are different from the rest of us. How so? Deep down in your mind, I see it. You won't accept the dissolution terms. Which ones? Both or either, but at least one. McKee thought inwardly, old bastard. Yes, quite. But not really. The real truth is thus within you, you are quite transparent. You think you can get more answers. A lot of us believe you have become, well, much too much religious. That's ridiculous. To touch the mind of God? What would you rather I do? Go and join the war effort. You see, my son, when man first discovered fire, it was the great beginning, man's journey to conquer the universe with his machines. It is in man's nature to war with those machines. Our very being is built on war. It is an unusual dilemma. We endeavor to understand our universe with the same hands that build the machines of our very own destruction. I think I know that. What a futile picture you paint with words. We would much rather have God in our hearts and in our minds and in the things we will do, the beauty of pure unadulterated mathematics, the multitude of ends in chess, an infinite and remarkable game. This is not for you. Farewell. The MBI requested, identify the two humans. The core replied, request void, no traceback found. Dream meets reality. The quantum world is a world of ghostly interactions. Interactions that leave shadows in the mind. A world where time has only one unit, the unit of quantization. A world where information travels so fast from one end of the universe to the other that the mechanical concept of distance vanishes from existence. Do humans really want to know and experience and interact one-to-one with that existence? With that cosmos? From Walker's treatise, The Power of Physics. The Cosmic Dream. Dream meets reality. Countless tiny bells gently tinkled in harmony as gusts of the cosmic wind of eternity blowing this way, and that way sparkled the sound in Callum ears as he sat in the lotus position bathing in the mystical vibrations of the unfathomable rhythms. A cool soothing hand rested on his naked shoulder, and he slid out of the trance, opening his eyes to a golden candle-lit shadowland of peace and tranquility. His Lu Wi master sat before him gazing into timelessness with his arms stretched out at waist height, his index fingers touching his thumbs, his voice humming the eternal OM. He knew without him saying what the master wanted. He wanted him to dance. Callum could visualize the dance, but he was inept at performing it and remained seated. Without moving his lips the master spoke, one cannot dance if one cannot hear the music. The divine call is there for us all. Listen. The tiny tinkles roared through Callum's ears and subsided. This world has made you into something that is not harmony with your being. All you can do that is divine is dance. The master's face expanded towards Callum, encompassing his vision with a huge head and eyes that stared into the bottomless chasm of eternity. The material stuff of the head dissipated into a milky cloud and evaporated, leaving a void of darkness permeated by the sound of the rhythmic chimes. 3 rolls of thunder boomed over the noise of the incessant chimes, and the master commanded, "Get up, Callum, Bod's here." Callum sat to attention in his bed, and the book flew off onto the floor with a dull thump, landing cover up. He looked down at it, the source of his late-night reading that had fed his furtive imagination, Jared Vukovic, The Dance of the Lu Wi Master. The house's door chimes continued ringing, and father's irritated voice behind the bedroom doors warned, "If I go down I will murder him." Callum peeked out through the bedroom curtains. Russell's car was parked in front of the house, and he was at the front door pressing on the bell. He picked up the book and dropped it into a rucksack, pulled a shirt on and leapt down the stairs. As he opened the door he was greeted by a cloud of cigarette smoke blown into his face. Russell took another huge drag on the cigarette and flicked it into the middle of the prim lawn. "I told you to be ready for 7. It's a 5-hour drive to the Glenlivet," and he lit another cigarette. Callum laughed. "It's just Glenlivet, the Glenlivet is a whiskey." Keeping his eyes focused on Callum's, He took a huge drag on the newly lit cigarette and flicked it into the middle of the lawn next to the first one, and drew his face into a look of complete disdain. Callum interjected before he could reply, "I'll get a move on." Callum stood with his back to the door when he went inside and firmed up what was on his mind. "I'd best go. It will be a matter of time before the police turn up at Ma's house looking for drugs. Drugs I have nothing to do about." When the dog got out of the living room and came to greet him, his mood lightened. "And you little shithead, this time you are coming with me." Smiling faces. Am I being patronizing? Insulting? Egotistical? No. I am telling the truth. If you do science and you're not a physicist, then you are a technician. In fact, most physicists are just that, technicians. Why do I say this? Because they don't believe with a true deep burning passion in the vision of what will be accomplished with the power of physics. The material world is of no consequence. The material world is there for me to do what I want with. And the laws of physics? Laws are made to be broken. From Walker's treatise, The Power of Physics. Smiling faces. Smiling faces. Callum Walker was always full of trepidation the first time he met someone new. It was an event that he could ignore, or he would make himself analyze from scratch what it was his brain was doing. That was the thing, it only worked for a short time straight after he had met someone new and saw their face for the very first time. Then if he shut his eyes for an instant he would see strange multicolored stereoscopic images. Most of the people he met since he could remember looked much the same. Carlyle though was a mixed and perplexing man who was hiding something big that gnawed away at his insides. When he met Dougie, it didn't take him long to realize that he didn't care about killing, that was written in his face. But his father, he was the first time he had met someone with no color, a monochromatic single image. There was no conflict within him. He was just the man Callum had been looking for. What is a man of principle meant to do in a world without principles? Is he to bend down and grovel and lick the boots of lesser men? Or is he stand up and walk the face of the earth as the man his father dreamt of him becoming, and would have wanted with all his being for him to strive to be? From A Glossary of Famous Gangster Sayings, published by the Underground Press. Animal Night at the Farm. The farm in Carlyle's nightmare seemed to be his farm. It was one of those real-type dreams that momentarily in sleep hoodwink you into thinking you are experiencing reality. Sure, the animals forgave him for shooting up their mate and they were going to take on re-educating him. But they didn't put it on him, not in any way. They just behaved as animals naturally and rightly do. They fed each other. They spoke to each other. And if one animal was sick, all the other animals looked after it. But Carlyle knew that they all knew too well what he had done and what he had been involved in. For an instant he believed that all had been an insane dream. But Carlyle was as tough as hell. He immediately snapped out of it and began to silently talk to himself to keep himself awake through the hours of waiting for them to come. Remember something that would help. Someone I remember being in this exact same situation. When it came to the crunch, the odds were not good. In the end he would use the flamethrower if had to. The thought nauseated him but sharpened his senses with a new invigoration. he swore to himself that nothing would go wrong. They would all die as cleanly as possible. Who is to say that men are to be ruled by government? Did God have it written down in the Bible that I should be subservient to whatever gang of shysters happen to be in power when I am alive? Is it the law of the jungle that all instinctively predatory creatures should give up and move aside for the rule of laws that are only applied to the weak and vulnerable? I know my place in this universe, and I swear I will never bow down to any man. From A Glossary of Famous Gangster Sayings, published by the Underground Press. Nasty and rude. Callum didn't say anything, but he had noticed tattoos on the man's knuckles. It took a while to read the upside-down letters, but eventually he figured out what it said when he put the two words together, "Take that." Callum smiled. He had found something that might break the ice. Were you glad when they reformed? The man looked up from the racing columns. What? Were you glad when they reformed? What the fuck are you talking about? Callum smiled and glanced down at his knuckles. The band. He chucked the paper down and leant forward, pushing the open suit jacket to the sides of his legs. Callum shuddered inside and froze at the sight of the polished silver butts of two guns that were holstered at his side. Are you some kind of fucking dick? The end of part 1.